How many times were in Warsaw?
I was in Warsaw 15 years ago 3 times, so this is my 4th time. But I've been to Krakow 9 times and Gdansk 4 times or so.
Okay, comparing Warsaw to Krakow, how many changes in these cities were done?
Well, it's difficult for me to make a judgment because I only arrived last night, but it's quite clear that there are dramatic changes in the inner city. It's become much more, modern buildings, etc. The key question really is, can you create the qualities you see and feel in the old town with that sort of intimacy in the newer elements of the city you're building, which is really about trying to find a place that feels very close, vital, and so on.
Yes. How to change the city? Change should follow the citizens? Should be other way?
Historically, the way cities have been planned has been very much from the top, from someone who is a physical planner normally, and then they may have a discussion with economics and Chamber of Commerce and so on. Now I think the way to really do it is both from the top and from the bottom at the same time, but also having the different sectors, the physical people, the economic, social people, somehow talking together. Because together, I think, the solution lies in being and having that joint conversation. That's my opinion.
You knew Asia cities quite good. What's the difference between Asia cities and Europe or American cities?
Yeah, I mean, European cities are one of the biggest assets that Europe has, although Europe, relatively speaking, is declining. The fact that we have these cities with a degree of urbanity and sophistication is one of our big assets. Chinese cities are just blowing and exploding out of all proportion and have a real problem about livability. My wife said recently, we were in China 2-3 weeks ago, it was like coming out of a black and white movie, because there's also haze and things like that, into Technicolor when one comes here. So European cities have a great advantage. They are less about the car, which again, from the point of view of economics and transaction and meeting and all of these things, is actually better. So the key question is to sort of reinforce those things that are good about European cities, which is public transport, make public transport feel like a wonderful experience rather than only for the poor people. So these are some of the main differences, really. More cars, more high and not much sort of vitality in streets, which we still have in European cities.
And what about the citizens? It's easier to communicate with
I think communicating with citizens is always difficult. Historically, as we know, when you do consultation, it's only those who are more vocal who are involved, which is good and bad. And I think we need to try and create a new common sense where there is always an urban conversation with the citizens. So it isn't only about issues that are contentious and difficult, but just about ordinary things. The direction of travel is communicating with citizens. That's the general direction. It's more difficult. I mean, that's why it's easier for Asian cities. They don't have to communicate. They just say, we do it. But they may cause a problem later. Brazil, Istanbul, recently, all these things not communicating with citizens is leading to lots of riots. In the case of Istanbul, it might stop them getting the Olympic Games, so these things are quite important.
During your presentation, you were talking about City 1.0, 2.0, when 4.0 and how it will look like.
Yeah, I mean, I was just playing a game because I was using computer language. But what I really mean is that each phase of city development has a slightly different emphasis. The first is hardware driven, just looking at roads and things. The second is more thinking about levels of attractiveness. 3.0 is more about communicating, being more flexible, communicating with citizens and so on. 4.0 may be the city that is able to understand economic wealth creation, dealing with the environment, dealing with the city feeling wonderful all together. That may be, which the 4.0, where the different departments actually come together and jointly create a vision rather than little kingdoms of departments working separately.
So vision of Eden exists, yes?
Does a vision of Eden exist? There's never a vision of Eden, but some things are better than others, is I think what I think.